Welcome to LA's Listening Lounge, where stories don't just entertain, they reveal. If you're new here, take a breath, get comfortable, and hit subscribe. Because in this lounge, we tell the kind of stories that sound like fiction until you realize they're stitched from real life. Tonight's story is called The Check Every 2 Weeks. It's about an empire built on image, a secret kept in the shadows, and a truth that shows up at the door when it's tired of being contained. So listen closely because every chapter comes with a lesson and every lesson comes with a receipt. Chapter 1: The Empire and the Image. Malcolm Rivers didn't just build properties, he built a reputation so polished it could reflect anything he wanted people to see and hide everything he didn't. He was the face of black excellence in real estate. Billboards downtown, plaques on the wall, microphones in his face at every ribbon cutting. Cameras loved him. Investors trusted him. The city respected him because his projects didn't just change skylines, they promised jobs, contracts, and a legacy people could point to with pride. And his wife, Simone Rivers, looked like the perfect partner beside him, polished, poised, and powerful in her own right. But Simone knew the part people didn't photograph. The silence after the applause, the late-night phone turned face down, the way Malcolm's smile stayed perfect even when his choices weren't. The cheating wasn't a rumor in Simone's mind. It was a pattern with a scent, expensive cologne layered over hotel soap, hugged into his shirt like an alibi. It was the business trips that never came with a true itinerary. It was the excuses that arrived dressed in confidence and left her holding her own restraint. She had swallowed years of hurt with grace because she believed in what they built, contracts signed on their name, employees who fed their families off Rivers' paychecks, community leaders who called Malcolm our proof. Every time Malcolm promised he'd change, Simone chose to protect the brand, the people, and her dignity more than her pride. She smoothed her face the way she smoothed every headline, carefully. That night, Malcolm adjusted his cufflinks in the mirror, calm and unbothered, like a man who believed the image was the same thing as innocence. In his world, mistakes were private and legacy was public, so legacy mattered more. Simone watched from the doorway with one hand on the frame, the other twisting her wedding ring once, just once, until it warmed under her skin. "You coming to bed?" "In a minute," Malcolm said, not turning around. "Emails." His phone buzzed again, quick, soft, then went still. Simone didn't argue. She walked away the way she walked away from so many things, quiet, composed, refusing to give the lie the satisfaction of a scene, because Malcolm Rivers always said emails when he meant lies. And Simone had learned that the truth didn't always kick down the door. Sometimes it waited, patient for the perfect time to walk in. Chapter 2: The Secret Boy. 16 years earlier, Nia Brooks held her newborn son and whispered promises into his forehead, soft, steady words she repeated like prayer. "You will be safe. You will be loved. You will never have to beg for what's yours." Nia met Malcolm at an open house, just window shopping with her cousin, two women in sneakers, laughing too loud in a marble kitchen they couldn't afford yet. Malcolm was the agent in a tailored suit with an easy grin. He walked Nia through the house like he was walking her into a future, intentional, attentive, generous with compliments. He told her he was single, told her he was building something real, told her she deserved a man who could provide and protect. Nia believed him because she wanted to, because he listened when she talked about working double shifts, because he remembered her coffee order, because charm, when it's consistent, feels like truth. When she got pregnant, Malcolm didn't disappear. He simply edited her out of his life. He talked about timing and pressure and what people would do to our names. He said he was protecting his future, his business, his image, like a reputation could be a shelter for everybody. When Jalen was 2, Nia discovered the truth in a magazine at the nail shop. Glossy pages, bright smiles, a headline that made her stomach drop. Malcolm Rivers, arm around Simone Rivers, named the power couple changing the city. Nia stared at the photo until the words blurred, then paid for her polish with shaking hands. When Malcolm came by the next time, Nia didn't greet him at the door with a smile. She held the magazine open like evidence and waited until his eyes landed on it. She expected shame. She expected apology. She got negotiations. "I'm going to take care of him," Malcolm said, voice low, controlled, like he was discussing a contract. "But you never tell anybody who I am. He never uses my last name. I come twice a month with a check. No calls to my office, no surprises. We keep this contained." He said it like containment was kindness. Nia's voice cracked anyway. "So me and my baby are a secret?" Malcolm's eyes stayed cold. "You want support or not?" Then softer, almost irritated. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." That is how Malcolm Rivers became a father in the shadows. 1st and 15th, sealed envelope, rules written in silence, while a little boy learned early that love could come with conditions. Chapter 3, The Accident. Jalen Brooks grew up without a father's name, but not without a father's face. People would tilt their heads and say, "You look like somebody," and Jalen would laugh too hard like he could outrun the question. Twice a month, Malcolm appeared, 1st and 15th, always on time, always temporary. A sealed envelope, a quick visit, a meal that tasted like obligation, a haircut, sometimes a new pair of shoes like leather could replace a last name. Jalen learned to watch the clock because Malcolm did. But Malcolm never stayed long enough to feel real. And the emptier Malcolm left him, the louder Jalen got at school. Too quick to fight, too quick to prove he didn't need anybody. He was never allowed to call him dad. Malcolm insisted on Malcolm or nothing at all, like fatherhood was a title you had to earn, and Jalen hadn't paid the right price. Nia tried to make the world stable anyway. Sunday mornings meant pancakes and affirmations. "My name matters," she'd make Jalen repeat, wiping flour from his cheek. Then one rainy night, her car hydroplaned on the interstate. The police showed up at the apartment with wet shoulders and careful voices. They asked for a guardian. They asked if there was family. Jalen's world didn't just stop. It hollowed out. At the funeral, Malcolm stood in the back, hidden behind sunglasses and distance, like the truth couldn't recognize him if he didn't step into the light. After everyone left, he pulled Jalen behind the church where the cameras didn't reach. "You're old enough to handle yourself now," Malcolm said, pressing an envelope into his hand. The paper was stiff, sealed, final. "This is the last one." Jalen stared. "What do you mean, the last one?" Malcolm's voice was flat. "I'm done." Jalen's throat burned. Anger rose first because grief was too big to hold. "You can't just leave me." Malcolm stepped back like distance could erase responsibility. "I'm not leaving," he said. "I'm ending this." Then he walked away, quietly, efficiently, like a man closing a file. That night, Jalen searched for something that still felt like his mother. He found a folder tucked behind her tax papers. Inside was a photo of Malcolm holding him as a baby, Nia smiling tired but proud, plus a name written in her handwriting like she'd been saving it for when he was ready, Malcolm Rivers. And Jalen decided he would no longer be a secret, even if telling the truth meant learning how to survive it. Chapter 4, The Knock on the Door. The Rivers estate had gates, cameras, and silence that felt expensive, the kind of quiet you paid for so you didn't have to hear the outside world telling the truth. Jalen pressed the intercom and watched the camera lens shift, studying him. "My name is Jalen Brooks," he said. "I'm here to see Malcolm Rivers." A pause, a click. Then the gate rolled back like the house was deciding whether to accept him. Malcolm met him in the study, jaw tightening the second he saw him, as if recognition was an inconvenience. "What are you doing here?" Malcolm demanded, but his eyes said something else. "You're not supposed to exist here." Jalen stood tall, even though his hands wanted to shake. "My mother died," he said, "and I'm done hiding." Malcolm's voice sharpened into something practiced. "You need to leave." "I'm your son," Jalen said. The words tasted unreal. "And you told me to fend for myself." That's when Simone appeared in the doorway. She had been walking past, half listening, until she heard the words, "son." Her gaze locked on Jalen's face, and something in her chest went still. The cheekbones, the eyes, the familiar shape of a jaw she'd seen in every mirror Malcolm passed. "Who is that?" she asked, and her voice carried the authority of a woman who ran rooms, not just households. Malcolm didn't even look at her. "Nobody. Wrong house." "He's confused," as if saying it fast could make it true. Simone stared harder, because Jalen looked like Malcolm, like the truth had walked in wearing Malcolm's bones. And it didn't matter how expensive the gate was. Truth had already been let inside. Simone's voice went low. "Malcolm, don't lie to me in my home." Malcolm snapped. "He's not mine." But Simone didn't believe him. Not with Jalen standing there like proof, quiet, grieving, and brave enough to speak a name Malcolm had tried to bury. Simone didn't say it out loud yet, but she felt it. If Malcolm could do this to a child, he could do anything and call it business. Chapter 5, The Mall Encounter. A week later, Simone went to the mall to clear her head, but peace wasn't on sale. Every reflective surface, store windows, chrome fixtures, mirrors, kept showing her the same thing, a woman who had protected a lie for too long. She walked into her favorite high-end store and saw Jalen behind the counter, folding luxury sweaters with careful hands like neatness could keep his life from coming undone. A name tag sat on his chest. Jalen. Simone's chest tightened, not from jealousy, not from shock, but from recognition. This was the consequence Malcolm had kept off the books. She approached. "Jalen." He looked up, guarded. "Yes, ma'am." His eyes flicked toward the back of the store like he expected security to come for him. Have lunch with me, she said, somewhere private. Because Simone knew the city watched her, always, and gossip moved faster than truth. At lunch, Jalen didn't eat much. He kept his shoulders tense like he was waiting for a trick. Simone let silence do its work until he started talking, piece by piece, like unloading a weight he'd carried alone. He told her how Nia met Malcolm, how Malcolm said he was unmarried, how Nia only learned the truth after Jalen turned 2, and a magazine told her what Malcolm never would. He told Simone about the 1st and 15th visits, the rules, the sealed envelopes, the way support came with silence. And he admitted the part that sounded like shame. She stayed quiet because she was scared, not for her, for me. And when my mom died, Jalen said, voice dropping, he told me I was old enough to fend for myself. Simone's hands clenched around her water glass. That sentence didn't just hurt, it revealed. Cheating was betrayal. This was cruelty. In that moment, Simone understood something she hadn't let herself name before. She wasn't standing beside a flawed man. She was standing beside a man who could abandon responsibility and still sleep at night. Simone looked at Jalen and made a decision she should have made years ago. Stop protecting Malcolm from the consequences of being Malcolm. You don't have to fend for yourself, she said. Not anymore. Chapter 6. A Bond Formed in Truth. Simone brought Jalen into her life carefully but fully, not as a headline, not as a scandal, but as a human being who needed stability more than sympathy. A guest house on the property, fresh sheets, groceries he liked, a key that belonged to him, therapy appointments that didn't feel like punishment. And one small thing Simone insisted on from the beginning, a framed photo of Nia on the nightstand so Jalen wouldn't feel like accepting help meant erasing his mother. Jalen fought it at first. I'm not your responsibility. The truth was harder. If he let her care, he might start needing it, and he didn't trust need. Simone answered, you were never supposed to be anyone's secret. Over time, Simone became what Jalen never had, a steady parent. She showed up to meetings. She asked about his classes. She sat through one awkward dinner where neither of them knew what to say, and she stayed anyway. Jalen tested her like kids do when they're afraid, late nights, sharp words, disappearing for hours. Simone didn't punish him with abandonment. She answered with consistency. And as that bond grew, Simone's anger toward Malcolm grew too, not just for what he did to her, but for what he did to a child, and for what his recklessness could eventually do to everyone tied to the river's name. One night, Simone sat across from Jalen and slid a notebook toward him. No emotions on the page, just facts. We're not going to fight him with noise, she said, because noise makes gossip, and gossip makes him a victim. We're going to fight him with strategy, and we're going to do it clean. Jalen's eyes narrowed. What kind of strategy? Simone's voice was calm. Business. Chapter 7. The Quiet Setup. Simone sent Jalen to college and paid every dime, but she also made him earn the education the way she'd earned her own power, reading contracts, studying markets, learning how money moves when nobody's watching. During those years, they built quietly. Simone brought in one trusted attorney, an older woman who didn't care about Malcolm's name and didn't flinch at the truth. Her rule was simple. If you do this, you do it airtight. No shortcuts. No mess. They created a company under a name with no connection to Rivers, layered behind LLCs and signatures that would never point back to Simone unless a judge forced them to. BS Holdings, short for Brooks and Stone, because they were building on what Malcolm tried to break. No flashy announcements, no headlines, just clean paperwork, smart investments, and patient planning, bank accounts opened in the right order, filings done on time, everything built to stand up under scrutiny. They bought undervalued properties, renovated with quality, rented with fairness, and built credibility without cutting corners. Simone insisted on that part. We don't become him to beat him, she told Jalen. They hired professionals who didn't gossip, attorneys who kept things sealed, accountants who asked only what the IRS required. And somewhere along the way, one of Malcolm's aides mentioned a rumor, an anonymous buyer showing up too often in deals across town. Malcolm laughed it off. He always thought threats came from above, not from beneath. Malcolm never noticed what mattered, because Malcolm never looked down, and he never imagined his own shadow could rise up, read the fine print, and purchase his crown. Chapter 8. The Competition He Never Saw. As Malcolm expanded, he overreached. He borrowed too much, trusted the wrong partners, signed risky deals because he believed his name alone guaranteed success. He told himself he was doing it for the culture, for the city, for the legacy, anything to avoid admitting he was addicted to winning. Then the market shifted. Lenders tightened. Projects stalled mid-frame like promises left unfinished. Partners pulled out and blamed the economy. But Simone could see the truth. Malcolm had built his empire on leverage and arrogance, and both have due dates. And whenever Malcolm needed an emergency buyer to keep a project from collapsing, someone to assume debt fast and keep banks quiet, an anonymous competitor stepped in. BS Holdings. They made fair offers, fast closings, quiet takeovers. They didn't slash jobs for headlines. They didn't brag. They simply did what Malcolm didn't respect, prepared. Malcolm hated them. He called them snakes. He demanded his team dig into who they were, and when his team failed, he hired a private investigator. Not because he feared losing money, because he couldn't stand losing control. But every trail went cold. Simone had already anticipated curiosity, layers of LLCs, separate mailing addresses, attorneys who answered questions with questions. Even the investigator's best lead ended at a dead end and a polite voicemail. Malcolm never suspected the enemy was living in his own house, sharing his last name, smiling at his galas, and quietly reading the contracts he never bothered to understand. Chapter 9. The Day the Paperwork Turned. Rivers Development finally hit the wall when a major loan came due and Malcolm couldn't cover it. The kind of loan that doesn't accept charm as collateral. His attorneys warned him, if you don't sell off assets, the bank will appoint a receiver. They'll take decisions out of your hands. Malcolm refused at first. Pride is expensive, and he'd been paying for it for years. But then the bank gave him the final option. Sign his controlling interest over to a buyer who could assume the debt immediately or lose everything in court. Malcolm arrived at a downtown law office, furious, sweating under his expensive suit. He sat at the conference table as papers were placed in front of him. Across the table sat representatives from the buyer, 2 attorneys, a financial officer, and someone Malcolm hadn't expected to see, Simone. His mouth opened. What is this? Simone's face was calm. This is business. Malcolm stood up, voice rising. You're behind BS Holdings? Simone didn't flinch. I'm behind accountability. Then another person stepped into the room. Jalen. Malcolm froze like his soul left his body. Jalen took a seat beside Simone, quiet and steady. Malcolm's voice cracked. No, this is... Simone slid the papers closer. You can sign, Malcolm, or you can lose it in court and still end up with nothing. Malcolm stared at Jalen, shame and rage wrestling on his face. You did this? Malcolm whispered. Jalen's voice was calm. You did this. I just stopped letting you do it to me. Malcolm looked at Simone like she was a stranger. You're my wife. Simone's eyes were cold. I was, but you treated loyalty like something you could spend. Malcolm's hands shook as he picked up the pen. And with one signature, Malcolm Rivers signed his empire over to the very people he thought would never touch him. Chapter 10. Divorce and the Final Lesson. Simone filed for divorce that same month. Malcolm begged, apologized, promised he would change, promised therapy, prayer, anything. Simone listened with the patience of a woman who had already grieved the marriage. When the divorce finalized, Malcolm showed up at Simone's door one last time. I have nothing, he said. Please, I'm sorry. Let me come home. Simone held an envelope. Malcolm's eyes lit up when he saw it. A check? He whispered. Simone nodded. Every 2 weeks. Relief washed over Malcolm's face. Then Simone finished. For 16 months. Malcolm's smile collapsed. Jalen stepped beside her. Just like you did me. Malcolm's voice shook. What am I supposed to do after 16 months? Jalen's eyes were steady. Fend for yourself. Simone opened the door wider, not inviting him in, but making room for the truth to exit. Goodbye, Malcolm, she said. And for the first time in his life, Malcolm Rivers walked away without a gate opening for him. Epilogue, a new name on the city. 16 months later, the checks stopped. No warnings, no extensions, no mercy. Simone and Jalen expanded Brooks & Stone into a company known for ethical building and real community impact. They funded scholarships. They honored Nia Brooks with a foundation. They created opportunities Malcolm never cared to create. On the anniversary of Nia's death, Simone and Jalen visited her grave. Jalen placed flowers down gently. Simone spoke softly. Your mother protected you the best way she knew how. Jalen nodded. And you didn't have to do any of this. Simone's eyes warmed. Yes, I did, because family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's who shows up when the truth hurts. They walked back to the car together, not bound by Malcolm's lies, but freed by what they built after them. And the city skyline kept rising, this time under a new legacy, not Rivers, Brooks, and Stone, because the truth always finds its way to the table, and eventually everybody pays. Outro. That's the end of The Check Every 2 Weeks, a story about image, silence, and what happens when the truth stops waiting outside the gate. If there's one lesson to take from tonight, it's this. You can hide a lot behind a reputation, but you can't hide from the bill forever. Every choice leaves a receipt. Tell me in the comments, what was the moment you knew Malcolm was going to pay, when Simone met Jalen or when the paperwork hit the table? And if this story hit you, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter we share in LA's Listening Lounge. Until next time, stay present, stay protected, and remember, truth always finds its way to the table.